Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Visibility Factor podcast. This is Sue Barber, your host. I've been having a few conversations this week with clients, and the same topic has come up a couple of different times, and I wanted to talk about it with you if you are looking for opportunities for visibility and to show up in a different way. One of the things that I have been talking with them about is being able to challenge your manager. The goal of this is to start to have them see you differently. And that means asking sometimes the hard questions of what's happening in a situation or why is it happening, because you need to understand it. And you need to be able to show that you're not afraid to challenge. So this isn't about challenging their authority or challenging every little thing that they do. But let's say that you're working on something and it's heading in one direction and all of a sudden it starts going in another direction. It's a fair question to ask, why did it change? What happened? Are there different outcomes that are expected now? Asking the hard questions might feel uncomfortable. Just ask the question as if it were to a peer or to someone else. I think sometimes we build up our managers and put them on pedestals, and then it makes it hard for us to ask something more challenging. But if you treat them like an equal, and you ask the question because you're trying to understand the bigger picture, clarify expectations, and ensure that you're aligned for success. You don't want to be put in a situation where someone has changed something and now you can't deliver it. I've definitely had experiences like this where there was a big shift and a resource who was leading another project left the company, and I was asked to take that new project on in addition to the other two that I already had. And the first thing I said is, I'll do that, but that means my due dates change, right? We're going to move it out 3 months or 6 months, whatever I said at the time. And it was no problem. It was like, of course, that makes total sense because I'm doing something to help the company succeed, right? I'm taking on another project in addition to what I already had. So don't be afraid to ask for what you need to be able to succeed in whatever it is you're doing. So be prepared with what you think objections might be or impacts to whatever it is you're doing. You don't want to feel defensive. You just want to be able to ask the right questions. So let's talk about how to approach these conversations. And it's really key to make sure that you do it in the best way. You just want to ask very fact-based questions in an even tone, right? You don't want to make the other person defensive. So you just want to understand what's going on. And so why do we hesitate, right? Why are we afraid to ask the hard questions? I think it comes down to fear in most cases. Fear of not asking the right question, fear of rocking the boat or upsetting someone or damaging a relationship. But asking hard questions when you do it the right way actually builds more trust and respect for you. It helps people see that you're willing to stand up and do the right thing. And that takes a little bit of courage, right? If you could ask the hard question, maybe it drives a different answer, a different response, or a different outcome. And you'll never know if you don't ask the question. So don't be the person that just says, oh, okay, I'll take that change. I could have done that in my situation, right? I could have just taken on all 3 projects and done whatever we needed to do to try to make that happen. But that would have been really challenging for my team and for me to be able to pull that off. So, what makes a question really hard? I think it touches on something that maybe no one else has talked about before. I have another client who's working on changing the organization and how the organization is set up. And there are definitely some challenges in that organization, and things need to be shifted. And it's not something that anyone wants to talk about, but it's something that they're going to have to talk about because it's really impacting them and their team in a big way. And so asking that hard question helps that conversation move forward. Does this make good business sense to do this? I've always kind of lived by the fact that if I'm doing the right thing for the business, it's the right thing to do. And if I'm doing it in the best way to help our team, to help the organization succeed, then it's the right thing to do. Think about your performance. Asking the question about how is my performance being measured? What are the expectations of me? What are the outcomes for this project? These are really hard questions sometimes for people to ask, but you need to know because you're being tasked with delivering something that if you don't understand the outcome for, how can you possibly be successful? It's also an opportunity for an honest conversation to happen that hasn't happened yet and needs to. So part of your role is to be able to ask the hard questions. And that might be challenging for you, but at the end of the day, they're going to respect you a whole lot more for doing it. So let's talk about how to prepare for that. When you have these hard questions that you want to ask, you have to think about, are you ready? So with this client that I talked about earlier, where there's a new organizational change, I said, go find some data. How much of your team's time is being spent on this project? How many of your team members are over allocated in terms of capacity? What else is happening? Are you driving revenue with these projects or not? You need to have data because data is really hard to refute. So if you do your homework and you understand the context about what you're going to ask, you can share some impacts. You have to be able to talk about it from a business perspective. It just allows the conversation to go in a bigger place. You can talk about the values or the goals that they've shared and be able to leverage those in your conversation. If this is a top priority project that we have for the organization, but it's not driving the revenue that's expected, is this the right project to work on? That's a hard question, right? But you can see why it's important to ask the hard questions. So looking at decisions that are made, goals, where things are fitting into the big picture of the organization and what's being done, the more information you have, the better off you are to be able to refute any objections that might come up or any other questions that you might get and be able to handle the conversation. And maybe it only takes you so far, and there's another conversation that needs to happen. But it gives you the opportunity to be in a stronger position and engaged in a really good conversation. Now, the one big piece of this is you're going to have to stay calm. Don't get defensive. Don't push back on things. Make sure that you are saying things like, of course, we can do this. However, we're going to have to look at the workload and see if we can manage that, but we can't keep taking on more projects without changing something. We either need to hire someone, slow this other project down, or potentially stop it altogether if it's not doing what we expect it to. So it's not from a place of confrontation, but from a place of clarity and trying to show that you're aligned, you're composed, you're focused on doing the right things for the company. And then have ideas, make recommendations of what you think it should look like. Don't be afraid to share those. You have a lot of ideas, you have a lot of strategies, but find a way to bring your ideas to light. Talk about where solutions might make more sense. Talk about how you see it as a possibility for the future. Like, imagine this could happen if we did these things. What would it look like for us? How could we operate differently? Sometimes you need to create the possibility for your management who may not be thinking that way. You may not be able to do all of it at once. So pick 2 or 3 things that make a lot of sense, that bring a big return for your time. And if you can change those things pretty quickly and show it's successful, well, then people are more open to doing change beyond that. So for today's visibility action plan, what I'd love you to think about is, how can you implement more of these challenging questions into your world where you need to? Into conversations with your manager, with other influencers, with your senior leadership team, even with your peers or direct reports. You just have to be ready with what it is you really want to get out of the conversation at a minimum. This could create a much stronger relationship between you and your manager when you have these conversations and you're acting like they're equal. Going in with a strong mindset, thinking about it as a leader who is a peer of this manager, allows you to come across in a really confident way and for them to see you that way. Remember, we're trying to create visibility opportunities for you, and this is just another way to do that. If you know someone that would benefit from hearing this episode, I would love it if you would share it with them. Thanks so much for joining today on the Visibility Factor podcast, and we'll catch you on the next one.